Hello, I'm Joe Calvarusa, Executive Director of the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Foundation. On behalf of the Foundation, we are pleased to present the insightful, enterprising work by journalists covering the presidency and national defense with this year's Gerald R. Ford Journalism Prizes for Distinguished Reporting. Each year, the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Foundation awards 2 distinguished journalism prizes, one for reporting on the presidency and the other for reporting on national defense. The prize is initiated in 1988, recognizing reporting excellence and fostering a better understanding of the presidency and national defense. Each year, the prizes are presented to the winners at a reception and event in Washington, D.C. But because of COVID-19, we are presenting this year's awards virtually. To present this year's prizes for distinguished reporting on national defense in 2019 is Mike Ford, son of President Gerald R. Ford and Betty Ford, and this year's chairman of the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Foundation. Mike?
Thank you, Joe. Hello, my friends. On behalf of the Ford Foundation, it's my great pleasure, it's my great honor to present the 33rd annual Gerald R. Ford Journalistic Prize for Distinguished Reporting in National Defense. And this year's recipients is a wonderful team from ProPublica, and we will be recognizing them and their journalistic efforts for 2019. Agnes Chang, Robert Faturechi, T. Christian Miller, and Megan Rose did an outstanding journalistic work in reporting about the series of ship and aviation accidents that befell the U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet and Marine Forces Pacific in 2017 and 2018. They painted a riveting story of individual tragedies and the systemic institutional neglect and leadership shortcomings that helped lead to these most unfortunate developments. Prior to joining ProPublica as a creative story technologist, Agnes spent 6 years at the New York Times, where she launched the company's proprietary 360 video player, and she also led user strategy and daily operations at the NYT Cooking. Megan, who recently won the Pulitzer Prize, has covered criminal justice and the military for ProPublica. Her work has resulted in several false convicted defendants clearing their records and a high-level staff leadership changes. Previously, she was the national correspondent at Stars and Stripes, reporting from several conflict and disaster zones, including Iraq, Afghanistan, and Haiti. And she also worked for the Associated Press, both domestically and abroad. Robert, an investigative reporter at ProPublica, recently won this year's Pulitzer Prize for national reporting with 2 colleagues for a series of stories about avoidable deaths in the Navy and Marine Corps and the failure of top commanders to heed warnings and implement reforms that could have saved lives. His reporting at ProPublica and previously at the Los Angeles Times has resulted in congressional hearings, new legislation, federal indictments, and widespread reform. T. Christian, a senior reporter for ProPublica, has covered 4 wars, a presidential campaign, and reported from more than 24 countries in his more than 20 years as a professional journalist and foreign correspondent. He has won numerous accolades for his work in the United States and abroad, including the 2016 Pulitzer Prize for explanatory reporting for coverage of sexual assault. You may have seen some of T. Christian's work in the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, the PBS Frontline, PBS NewsHour, NPR, and All Things Considered, among other major media networks. So, after considering a lengthy and roster of extraordinary submissions, the foundation's judges shared the following sentiment regarding the Pro Humanitate, ProPublica team in their reporting of the aviation and ship accidents. The judges stated, and I quote, "Their reports captured these catastrophic events and their aftermath from the perspectives of the sailors and airmen involved, who were under immense pressure to maintain grueling operational tempos, and also the perspectives all the way up to the highest levels of the Department of Navy, where leaders struggled with crippled budgets, resource allocation, and national strategy concerns, as well as the 7th Fleet leadership that was caught in the middle." The judges went on to say, ProPublica's conclusions serve as a warning to the other military services where similar erosions in funding, maintenance, and leadership could lead to similar consequences. The ProPublica's team's collective product is an excellent example of the values of the Gerald R. Ford Journalism Prize. T. Christian, Megan, Robert, Agnes, you have each earned our deepest appreciation for your excellence in journalism and for your dedicated contributions through the reportings of these incidents. On behalf of the Gerald R. Ford Foundation, it is a great honor that I present each of you the Gerald R. Ford Journalism Prize for distinguished reporting on national defense for 2019. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I know that each of you have received or are receiving these awards in the mail because we are separated by this pandemic, but we would love to hear any thoughts or words that you might have as you are recipients. So Agnes, would you like to say a word or two?
I want to thank the Gerald Ford Foundation. I'm very honored to be here today. This project was really a team effort. I'd like to thank first and foremost T, Megan, and Robert, without whom my work would not have been possible. And I'd also like to thank all my colleagues who helped assemble the multimedia package for this project. Lucas Harrell on the 3D models, Alshan Moy Syed for the graphics, Lucas Waldron and Katie Campbell for video, Robert Reichert and Alan Tan for the design, and of course our executive editor, Steve Engelberg, for his constant support. And finally, I'd like to thank my editor on this project, CC Wei, and T especially, for being a source of inspiration throughout and being game for everything, the crazy ideas and everything the whole time. They made it possible. Thank you.
Wonderful. What a team. Robert, did you have some thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Agnes said. You know, this was a real team effort. ProPublica threw the full force of the institution behind this work, and I'm so grateful for that. I'd also obviously like to thank the Ford Presidential Foundation. You know, I've looked at this year's winners and past year's winners, and it's just, you know, humbling to be in this group. And then most of all, I would like to just sort of say that this work is, you know, a testament to the sailors and Marines, you know, up and down the chain of command who, you know, at great personal risk to themselves, their relationships, their reputations, in some cases their freedom, you know, agreed to become sources. You know, every single one of them were motivated by, you know, the fact that they wanted these kinds of tragedies to be less likely to happen in the future. So, you know, I just like to highlight their massive contribution to this work.
Thank you, Robert. Very good words. And Megan, did you want to share some thoughts?
Sure. So it is super an honor to have been recognized by the Ford Foundation. I started my career covering military a long time ago, and I was always looking to the Ford Awards every year to see which journalists and stories were honored. And so it is, as Robert said, very humbling to be among them now, and I'm very appreciative and thank you. I also want to mention, that ProPublica is a nonprofit, and we're able to do this work because there are amazing donors out there who believe in watchdog journalism, and it's really important. So a shout out to everybody who lets us do really long, in-depth investigations like this one.
Absolutely, so important, Megan. And now, T, would you like to say a word?
I also want to sort of, here's my award too, which I am very, very proud of to have received, as all of us are. Like everyone else, I'd like to echo how deeply honored we are by this award. It is an award which everyone in this community of national security and defense reporters knows about and wishes to one day receive. It's about covering vital issues in a vital time, and we're grateful to receive it. I also would be remiss if I didn't note, Mike, that I went back and I looked at your father's naval service, and I was struck by the similarities between our stories and his own experience when he was the general quarters officer of the USS Monterey during the Typhoon Cobra and Halsey's fleet in 1944, and thinking about the work he did going below decks and saving sailors from a fire, and how our sailors and our Marines were relying upon that tradition of service and dedication and resilience in saving their own crew members and their own fellows, and trying to make their ships safe and a better place. So I just thought it was great that they were relying upon the history that your father helped to build. I'd like to personally thank all of my colleagues here, Megan, Robert, and Agnes. The story was a team story from start to finish. Our editors were Joe Sexton and Tracy Weber, Robin Fields, and Stephen Engelberg, and then the entire ProPublica staff at one point or another. Everyone, it seems like, was involved at one point or time or the other in getting this across the finish line. So it was a team effort, again, in the best traditions of our Navy. Finally, I like to thank my wife, Leslie, my 3 kids, George, Olivia, and Ruby, who are very patient over very many long weekends and help support me through this whole process. So again, huge thanks to you and to receiving this award.
Thank you, T. And well done on that research on my father's naval career. And I do see the parallels between some of his experiences in battle and in service in the Pacific and what you have reported in your the U.S. Navy here in 2017-18. So, yeah, again, just wonderful work of the highest level by all of you at ProPublica, and we just congratulate you again for this prestigious award, and wish you well in your careers. I'm now going to throw it back to Joe to finish our presentation.
Congratulations to ProPublica and to this year's great team of dedicated reporters. This concludes this year's presentation for Distinguished Journalism on National Defense in 2019.